Um, so usually we end these with something funny, but this time we're gonna start with something funny. Mike, you're gonna do stand-up comedy?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, all right. So they put together this thing called Musicians Do Comedy over here in Bremerton at the
Mhm.
Charleston, which is a notorious kind of punk club that's turned into an all ages kind of cool place to go. And yeah, I got a thing where I'm gonna stand and I'm gonna play on a practice pad on an ironing board and tell jokes about learning to be a drummer. I can't tell those jokes here, but I got a few jokes.
I've heard your jokes. Um so I'm gonna just preview next week for everybody where we talk about how Mike bombed at comedy.
Right?
But hey, whatever, whatever.
You know
All
what
right,
the most surprising thing is? They're
what?
charging $15 at the door for this.
That's a lot to make you pay to do stand up.
No, that
I'm
means there's
just
not going to be very many people there, and I'm not too worried about it.
You're gonna have to pick up my jokes faster if you're gonna be a
I know.
stand-up
Yes. I
comedian.
know.
Okay. Hey, so we have a lot going on. The reason I have this background up and everything is I'm working from Florida. I have been here all
Is that a
week for the
manatee behind you?
No, that is a kraken.
Oh,
It
sorry
looks
about
like a
that.
manatee, but it's not. It doesn't really look like a manatee. I did see dolphins. Um, the American Hospital Association Rural Conference was here in Orlando last week, and then HIMSS is coming up in also in Orlando. And great conference. One of the things that I continue to be buoyed by, to use more sea references, is that more and more board members really understand the cyber threat and really understand what needs to be done. And I really hope that they are coming back to their organizations and empowering the IT team, which is something that needs to happen, especially with the new Health and Human Services CPG's cybersecurity performance goals.
Mhm.
And in light of the fact that there is a major ransomware, we believe ransomware attack going on right now at Change Healthcare, which is part of Optum, which both operates hospitals and clinics and
Yeah,
all
they're
sorts of
huge,
different
right?
things. Yeah, I mean, they also provide pharmacy to a lot of organizations around the U.S. I mean, this is a very very big impact type of attack. We don't know anything about what the ransom is. We don't know anything about that. They've sent out their "we're having a computer incident" note, and so still waiting to hear there. But I hope that something like this and hearing about those cybersecurity performance goals and at the conference last week that people are really coming back to their hospitals and saying, hey, we really need to fund this, we really need to focus on cybersecurity this year. To that end, next week we do have a webinar about those cybersecurity performance goals. It'll be Mike and Fred, and we're going to be joined by our friends at Armis, their healthcare lead on this as well. So it should be a great webinar next week. You can email me to get a registration link. You can look on our website as well at criticalinsight.com. Also, tomorrow we have security awareness training. Mike, are you excited?
Extremely. I wonder,
Um,
I
yeah,
wonder if it was the Lockbit gang that did change healthcare. Because if
I mean, they
so,
just got
the
shut
landscape
down.
has changed. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And they released a decryption key. It's actually a pretty good story. Um, so yes, awareness training is coming tomorrow, and we should have some nice updated content in there because the landscape is changing really rapidly, and we're starting to see deep fakes and proliferation of AI generated content that's really fooling people. So everybody's got to up their game. So come to SAT tomorrow.
Hey, and go back to that lockbit thing. Just
Yeah.
in case people did pay really close attention, tell folks what's going on there.
So law enforcement in multiple countries, UK and the United States predominantly, arrested a couple of the actors in Poland and Ukraine. And they shut down something like 200 cryptocurrency accounts linked to these characters.
Hmm.
Indictments have been unsealed against 2 other Russians. They took over their infrastructure. They're trolling them in the on the confiscated infrastructure. They're releasing their identities. They're doxing them, and this is probably going to shut them down for a week. So,
You think just a week?
well, and they released a decryption key. So again, if Change Healthcare was hit by the Lockbit gang, they may have a way out of this.
Hmm.
We're going to have to see. They're not saying it's ransomware. They're saying, oh, it's a cybersecurity issue. Okay, we know what that is. So
Yeah. I will say about the Lockbit gang, it's good to see the good guys win one.
yeah,
We spend so much time talking about the good guys losing. It's nice to see the good guys win one and take these folks down. We also saw the FBI arrest somebody, from Russia who they somehow got to South Korea. So it does seem like the FBI is and the international. This is all sorts of international crime agencies, taking more action. So that's really good.
they got the Zeus malware guy too. So
Oh,
there's
that's
another
right.
arrest. And while we're on the subject here, this Volt Typhoon APT
Hmm.
group,
Hmm.
the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice together are really going on offense against these folks. That they've cleaned up a whole bunch of home routers that were compromised to use for denial of service attacks, command and control, things like that. Also did that with some Russian infrastructure. So this whole defend forward business is starting to
Hmm.
pay off. And this is exactly what we need. We've just been taking it for too long, and now we're punching back.
Well, good, frankly, good. We got
Yeah.
to get these folks. The other thing that's happening right now is there's an AT&T outage that started overnight, and a lot of people are wondering whether it's cyber. I don't know, and we don't know. I mean, there's no official word. Mike, what are you thinking?
Well, there's speculation that I've read this morning, so
Mm,
every morning I go to Google News and just see what's top of the news. And so this is top of the news. And somebody actually said that, and this wasn't in the article that I read, but for Verizon may be impacted too. And what it says is there's problems with their peering, which is
mm,
how a carrier hands off to another carrier to move traffic. And so this handoff has been impacted, and that they think that's what it is. So
mm.
if you're an AT&T customer, you're trying to call somebody on T-Mobile, there has to be this peering thing, right? This handoff. So I don't know. We're going to find out next couple of days.
Yep. Yeah, we sure will. Hey, one other thing to talk about here. So it feels like this news keeps going back and forth and back and forth. So the news this week: initial ransomware demands jumped 20% to
Yeah.
$600,000 last year. There was another story that said there's been more ransomware attacks, and in another one, fewer people are paying ransoms than ever. It seems like these might be contradictory, but
I don't
what?
think so. I think they're
Okay.
aligned. So if fewer people are paying and they have to keep their revenue up, that means each victim has to pay more. So to me, that checks out. I thought it was
I
interesting
guess, yeah.
in the article, they talk about, the research being done by these actors and how they set the ransomware price. It has to do with, the resources, right? The size of the corporation, their financial position. They're probably looking at financial statements, what industry they're in, because that has to do with the criticality of their systems and how much downtime they can stand.
Hmm.
The how much insurance they have, and you've talked about that before, how they find out exactly what that threshold is.
Hmm.
But then the last one, and I thought this was interesting, the ego and mood of the attacker. So somebody's having a bad day, that number is going to be big. It is what it is.
The ego and mood of
The
the
ego
attacker.
and mood, yes.
Was somebody
I don't know
watching?
how they did this research. Okay, I don't know if they interviewed these characters and got them. I don't know. I don't know.
I know. If they're worried about the ego and the mood of the attacker, I know how they did the research, Mike. They went and pulled up the HBO app and they rewatched The Sopranos, and then they decided how much to charge.
No, they gave him a Myers-Briggs test.
Were they on LinkedIn or were they on the HBO app? These are the questions we need to know. Oh, okay. See, Mike, that
Another interesting. So, while we're on the topic here of business impacts and things like that, Robert Half is a staffing company. So they're huge, and right, they got like 1,000 customers, and they provide staffing services for them. That means they have really a lot of W-2s on their network. Okay. And so they've targeted more than 1,000 of their customers. They've got names, addresses, social security number, tax information. This ain't good. This one's really not good, because this is enough data for what are known to be well-paid individuals to really start handing off the financial fraud, making it a big problem. Yeah.
and I mean, Robert Half is massive. They have more than 1,000
Ma-
customers. I was
oh yeah.
curious why they're, it does say that they're targeting 1,000 customers in this. And, I mean, a lot of the folks there, anyway, they may have your information and you don't even know it, because, their recruiters go out and they
Yeah.
find candidates on LinkedIn and they put them in a database and they say, hey, we want, Mike, what do you think about this guy Mike for this job?
Yeah.
And you don't even know that they're shopping you to a company. So, that's not a good one. And I think we're going to see a lot of people being surprised that their data is caught up in that one. Um, Speaking of surprises, so Mike, I was surprised to see this water utility tips from
I
the
was
government,
too. I was too.
because and I'm going to tell
Read
you why
between
I was.
those lines. Read between those lines, right? Tell me what you think that means.
Well, but I'm going to tell you why I was surprised. It seems like the federal government has done a really, frankly, a nice job of creating these cybersecurity performance goals for the health sector.
Yeah.
They're well organized. There are 20 of them. They're voluntary, but everybody knows that they won't be voluntary for long. And then they follow up for the water sector, and it's this sort of bland, like, tip sheet. I mean, they're good things in there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it was written by a fourth grader.
Yeah.
It's good, but it doesn't have the same oomph.
Well, I don't
Why?
know. I mean, I think it's a difference in the lexicon they're using, right? So what are the
I don't know.
CPGs?
I don't.
If they're voluntary performance goals, aren't they tips?
No, no, because the wording around the CPGs are, hey, these will likely become mandatory. The
Yeah.
data that is calling something cybersecurity performance goals is a lot different than calling something a tip sheet.
Okay. All right. Well, here's how I read this. Okay. So CISA is working with these sector-specific agencies in the critical sectors, using the rulemaking process to try and get better compliance of aligning those organizations with standards of practice. Okay. And EPA tried to do that with the water sector, made a very reasonable request. When you do your sanitary survey, we want you to do a cyber assessment and submit that as well. 3 red states sued, unfunded mandate, no, no, no. 1 week later, a whole bunch of water utilities get hit. So CISA has to go back and double down and go, okay, well, we still need to meet this goal of helping them secure. They're not going to let us regulate. What are we left with? And this is what they're left with. So it seems that, you know, um, the different agencies involved in providing this regulatory slash standards of practice guidance don't get treated equally. Health and Human Services seems to be no problem. Water sector, EPA, one of the most hated, by half the government organizations there is, because of all the regulatory stuff that, keeps our air clean. Everybody hates that, right? So, that's the way I read this. That's all they're left with.
I mean, it seems just so weak, after, just a couple of weeks ago, they did something so strong for healthcare. It was surprised to me that it was a tip sheet.
Well,
Like,
and
I want
contrast it.
water and I want water and sewer to have more than a tip sheet.
I do too, right? But again, to my point, contrast it with what the Coast Guard just told the maritime ports, right?
I missed that one. What would the Coast Guard do?
The Coast Guard is telling the ports that they're going to have to align with standards of practice. I'll keep using that phraseology because it's
Hmm.
generic enough to mean something, about their IT and OT. And they were specifically worried about Chinese cranes. But writ large, it's about the operational technologies involved at the ports. And
Hmm.
we have port customers, and we know this. In fact, one of the ports that I won't name, a long time ago, we checked out one of these cranes. And I don't want to tell you what we found, but it was not good. They needed to patch their crane. So so the Coast Guard is allowed to say you will align with these standards of practice, ports, and the EPA goes, here's your tip sheet.
Hmm.
Okay, and it seems to be a disconnect in it seems to be differential behavior according to what agency they're trying to beat up.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We'll see. I mean, I really hope. I don't know. I will tell everybody that being at this conference and seeing the non-technical folks, board members, doctors, nurses, CEOs, CFOs, really understand the CPGs and take them seriously. I hope that other sectors get that same treatment from CISA because it has captured the attention of people who frankly control the pocketbook. So anyway, I hope that
Well,
spreads.
I mean, there's another difference too, right? So, the American Hospital Association works alongside Health and Human Services to help them, provide this guidance that is not overly regulatory, because the AHA is at its core a lobbying organization, right? And they're trying
Right. And
to
anti-regulatory,
prevent
right.
right. All
But
right,
yeah,
just a
anyway,
couple more
whatever. They
things in the critical infrastructure slot
yeah,
here
whatever.
before we get out of this. The Alf V gang,
Hmm.
apparently they hit a pipeline in Canada, Trans-Northern Pipelines. Okay, that's critical infrastructure.
Hmm.
The U.S. has offered $15 million to catch this gang and other lockbit individuals. So there's a lot of money on the table if you want to go, unmask these folks. Um, there was also, we haven't talked for 2 weeks. The Volt Typhoon, China's spies,
Hmm.
they broke into an emergency management network of a large U.S. city that hasn't been named. Okay, mess with emergency management, it makes it real easy to cause chaos.
Hmm.
Right, like a power outage, all of a sudden can't be managed.
Yeah.
And interesting too, the U.S. Again with the defend forward stuff, hacked an Iranian spy ship, right, that was providing intelligence to the Houthis.
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of
Yep.
a cool
Yep.
story,
Yeah.
right? So a lot going on.
Lot going on. Hey, interestingly, we do have a couple of comments. We have one person saying "me too" about hoping the CPGs go to other. I assume because
Yeah.
the funny thing is when we say something on this and then you comment on LinkedIn, it's like 10 seconds delayed. So the person who said "me too," I'll bet you were just agreeing with me. That's what I'm going to go with.
Not a chance.
If you say "me too," it's about me, not Mike.
Okay.
And then second is that CPGs don't include EDR, an important missing item, even if it's just amped up Defender with tamper protection enabled. Yeah, it doesn't include. They don't include EDR, but they do include detecting attacks in the enhanced. And it
Mhm.
I think that they tried to avoid in the CPGs being really specific about technology. Um, and because they tried to be not specific, they want organizations to decide what the best technologies are for them. I also think that there's a truth about security technologies, and that is that, we're living in this moment, and we're certainly a vendor that sells a thing. We sell multiple services and a thing, and those things change over time. And I think they're trying to make the CPGs last so that these 20
Mhm.
things can last over time and not be hooked into, a technology like a backup technology, an encryption technology, MDR, XDR, EDR, name your acronym, right? Just
Yeah.
my guess. All right, Mike, let's get the threats and vulns. And by the way, we're gonna talk more about that EDR question next week and about a lot of folks have said that they kind of missed that there was a lot missing in the CPGs about medical IoT. There's like a little bit in there, but not enough. So we're going to talk about that in that webinar next week. All right, Mike, take us into threats and vulns.
All right. Have you restarted Chrome to patch it?
Yes.
I did. Patch Chrome. It's interesting. Before we get into the actual vulnerability list here, at least the ones we think are important enough to talk about here, there was a study done, and what it established was that the attacker breakout time has fallen to 1 hour. All right, so that's the time lag between something automated has been able to gain initial access into your network and somebody has interactive keyboard access into your network. So that tells you have about an hour to figure out what's going on and purge your network of that individual or gang or whatever that is. And if you don't, then the real bad things happen. So put out the grease fire on the stove within an hour and your house won't burn down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a vulnerability in Outlook. It's called the moniker link flaw. I'm not going to get into the details, but it's a CVSS score 9.8 out of 10, and it's 21413. Should have been patched. If you've taken your Microsoft patches, you're going to be okay. There's also a whole bunch of Exchange servers vulnerability that are vulnerable to a bug that's being actively exploited right now. And what they said was up to 97,000 Exchange servers. And I think this is on-prem Microsoft Exchange. So the CVE there is 21410. And again, this is going on right now. So you might want to drop what you're doing as soon as we're done talking and then go patch that.
Do not stop this stream.
No, do not. SolarWinds got another problem. Remote code execution. There's a couple of CVEs there, 23476, 23479. Check those out if you are a SolarWinds user, and it's the Access Right Manager. Check that out. This is an interesting one. Remember the Ivanti stuff that's been going on for all this time? And it's like flaw 1, flaw 2, flaw 3 being actively exploited. Now they've done a deep dive into the Pulse Secure product by Ivanti. They're using 11-year-old Linux and outdated libraries in there, including a version of Perl that was. So Perl is a language, right? The practical extraction relational language or something like that. And it was written by this guy, Larry Wall at JPL while I was JPL. That tells you how old Perl is. And it was super vulnerable then. And if they're still using that now we know why Ivanti has been pummeled. And what's the last thing? There's a remote code execution in what's called the Bricks WordPress site builder. So that's the CVE is 25600. Better get it patched.
So two things. One, I just want to clarify for folks what Mike was saying there is that he's not young. And I just want everybody to know that I agree with that. How long ago you were at JPL? That's very important. And second,
it was in the last century. That's true.
In sometime in the 1900s, Mike, sometime in the 1900s. Oh, by the way, and on that EDR note, I do wonder whether there are going to be CPGs for other industries, K-12, state and local, other verticals that fall under critical infrastructure, where EDR in some ways is more useful than in a hospital where you have so many medical devices that can't take an agent. Not that it's not useful, but that, anyway, well, I am curious to see what happens with that, because the commenter here is right. There has been a lot of comments saying, wait, you didn't include EDR, since that's an insurance no-brainer. And I mean, a cybersecurity no-brainer as well. So anyway, we'll see. All right, Mike, at the end of all of these, you have something to make us all laugh, make us think a little deeper. What do you got?
Well, I mean, it's not all funny. I think this one is. So, that chat bot that you put on our page that's
on our website?
So well, yeah.
It is working out well. Thanks for asking.
It is. Turns out Air Canada's got one of those.
Oh, good. Is theirs better than ours?
Apparently not. Because and this is going on a lot. Like on Reddit, you can find people talking about their exploits, how they're gaming AI chatbots and things like this in Chat GPT. So this was perfect. This was not, somebody actively trying to game the system, but this person was interacting with this chatbot for Air Canada and
Mhm.
wanted a refund from a flight that got canceled or something like that, or he had to cancel, and he got the chatbot to agree to provide that refund. And then Air Canada comes back and says, no, you can't have that refund. And their reasoning is unbelievable. Actually, it's a court order said, the gave the quote I'm about to give you, right? It said, according to Air Canada, Moffat should never have trusted the chatbot, and the airline should not be liable for the chatbot's misleading information because Air Canada essentially argued that the chatbot is a separate legal entity that is responsible for its own actions. That was in a court order. Where have we landed? How have we gone so wrong with this technology so quickly?
Oh,
So
I
go
will
out
tell
there,
everybody.
get chatbots to make promises on behalf of a corporation, and frankly, you might win in court.
Well, I will let everybody know that the chatbot on our site is extremely dumb. It is purposely dumb. If you type in there, it just sends a note to me, and then I'll pop on and talk to you on our website. And it's down today. We're doing some work on the chatbot. It'll be back up next week. And no, it is not powered by AI.
And as you remember, it took a little bit of time for us to get to a yes on the implementation of that chatbot.
Yeah, my CISO is a real pain in the tuchus.
Mm-hmm.
Mike's in the CISO. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.